Hey friends, the Johnster Monster of episode 12 of Shadow and Flame with Magic the podcast. We are going to review Uncanny X-Men 143, Demons. Brr, 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 brr. All right, everyone. This is episode 12. We're going to review Uncanny X-Men 143, Merry Christmas. Guess what just came down the chimney? Reads the title, or the cover, by John Byrne and Terry Austin. Thanks to UncannyXmen.net, I googled X-Men Christmas stories, and this was the first one I own, because I was like, well, which one do I start with? And I was like, where's a great place to start with? The first one. And I know a thing or two of that thanks to this, how I clearly started this podcast with. And so we're gonna do this. So the cover cost was 50 cents. It is approved by the Comics Code Authority. In the corner box we have Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, Kitty, Kurt, and Angel. Which I guess I don't remember Angel being part of this team, but I guess so. Uncanny X-Men 143, March 1981. Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Colossus, Children of the Atom, students of Charles Xavier, mutants, learn, feared and hated by the world they have sworn to protect. These are the strangest heroes of all. Stanley presents the Uncanny X-Men. And this gorgeous splash pages, Storm being impaled by all these demons. And the narration box reads, her name is Storm, and although in her young life she has been hailed as a goddess, she is in truth a mutant, mistress of the wind and the weather, and now a member of the Uncanny X-Men, a team of mutant superheroes. The autumn night in the sky above New York, Westchester County, she has come face to face with beings as foul as the pit that spawned them. Members of an ancient race that once ruled the earth and who mean to rule it again. Which I don't know, do these guys ever come back ever? There are the Nigari. There we go. I just had to read it one more time. The elder gods of legend, the ultimate evil. One of their number has attacked the X-Men in the mansion that serves as the mutant secret headquarters. Below Storm is an age-old Garen. Karen? C-A-I-R-N? Karen? That's how I'm going to say it. Lowe's malefic power sustains the creature that threatens her friends. Unless she destroys it utterly, the X-Men are doomed. And then all of a sudden the Karen shoots at her. And it zaps her, and all the Nigari start bringing her down to the temple of it. It's as if the sun had monetarily touched the earth. Raw energy, fueled in part by Storm's claustrophobic fear of being buried alive, in part by the atastic terror born of subconscious racial memories of the Nigari, explodes around her, shattering the Garen. At the same instant, the thing spawned by that Garen simply ceases to exist. Shaken by her soul, by her narrow escape, Storm soars wearily home. For details, see X-Men 96, which of course I don't own, but that is the first appearance of the Nigari. Louise Jones is the editor. One day will be Louise Simonson. As Professor Xavier, the X-Men's founder and mentor, telepathically assures her that the battle is over, the victory won. Months pass, and nature begins to heal the terrible wounds inflicted by that brief, fierce combat. The X-Men move on to new challenges, new foes. They know triumph and tragedy. And in their time, the Battle of Nigari, one of their first of the new X-Men fought, is forgotten. Forgotten it may be by the X-Men, but it is far from over. Professor Xavier believed that destroying the Garen would forever seal this gateway between the Nigari dimension and Earth. He was wrong. And there's amazing panel layout on the bottom of this 2-page sequence where like you see like storm fly away. It's clearly transitioning to winter. Then we get a panel of winter. Then it's spring with birds out, and then fall leaves, and now we're back to winter again. And then we catch up with a couple, Douglas and Sue. I like to think that maybe Claremont's experimenting with the word Doug and like really liking the way it's in print. And he's like, maybe I'll keep this name perhaps. And they're up on just on a hilltop, just enjoying the winter when all of a sudden, for Douglas Moore, death is virtually instantaneous as the Nagari just grabs him and like, strangle chokes him to death. In front of a... Now, this panel is amazing, too, where the Nagari just dismisses Douglas and lifts Sue up in the air in front of a blood moon. Which, when I was reading this earlier, my son Walker D was like, what is a blood moon? And I had to look it up just to make sure I, don't misinform a now 9-year-old. But it's apparently when it's a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse. You don't say mooner. His wife has time for her choke cry that is ended as quickly as abruptly as her life. And when the killing is done, the Nagari feeds on both body and soul. These victims are but the first of many. And it'd probably be a good time to point out the Nagari are clearly a homage to the Alien in the Alien franchise, a xenomorph, and which this comic came out 2 years after the 1979 movie, and then 4 years before the 86 Aliens movie directed by James Cameron, back in theaters thanks to Avatar 2. So here we go. Splash page. Demon. Twist the night before Christmas, and all through the house, the X-Men are stirring. It's been a quiet month since their battle in Washington, D.C. with the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which I like the idea that these are the new X-Men, and then they just already fought the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Louise Jones gives us a no but last-ish, which is a great point to point out. This is Uncanny X-Men 143, which I've said again, but it's the immediate issue that followed the 2-part Days of Future Past. So Kitty is still getting the hang of things as she showed up to the mansion at the end of 38, the last chapter of the Dark Phoenix saga, then joins the team in 139. Remember, he draws a blank of what 140 is about, and then which probably a good sign. We should probably review that soon. And then 140 and 142 are Days of Future Past. And they spent the time catching their breath, honing old skills, learning new ones. No day, no opportunity is wasted, which is why even on Christmas Eve, Kitty Pryde, the newest and youngest member of the team, must spend an hour under Professor Xavier's instruction in addition to her schoolwork, learning all there is to know about the X-Men, their abilities, and their equipment. Which, as I'm recording it, it's December 19th, the first day of Hanukkah. So, happy first day of Hanukkah to those celebrating, especially Kate Pryde out there. And so Xavier's trying to be patient with Kitty as he tells her to once again start the Blackbird ignition procedure. And she's just like bored with the whole thing. And we get our credits finally. Writer and co-plotter, Chris Claremont. Penciler and co-plotter, John Byrne. Terry Austin, inker. Tom Orchardowski, letterer. Glynis Ween, colorist. All of a sudden, you got a panic. Like, oh, did I not hit record? Editor Louise Jones and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. And then Angel comes into the room in full costume, telling Xavier the car's ready. They're going to be late. And Kitty's thankful for the interruption as she's, ready to move on from the Blackbird. And Xavier's not happy about it. But Angel is trying to get them to just get moving. Which I should say that not only do I own the story in 143, but I also own Marvel Chillers, The Pride and Terror of the X-Men, which I'm holding in my hand, but you can't see that. And it has a cool amalgam trading card ad in the back, arriving February 28, 1996. And this book, Marvel Chillers, The Pride and Terror of the X-Men, came out in 96, naturally. And it was written by Ralph Macchio, the Marvel writer, naturally. And I was filming through it, and I want to say there's like 15 chapters, and there's a part of me that wants to read this at some point. It's 15 chapters, 88 pages, and I'm like, well, what if I read like 22 pages an episode and be done for like 4 episodes? And I was like, well, I should do that for Halloween, like in October. But then I'm like, well, this is a Christmas story, though. Well, I guess it's more of a Nightmare Before Christmas story, but I know it's an idea that's rattling in my head now. Soon in the mansion's foyer, fancy, Wolverine, I should say Logan, in a nice brown suit, is welcoming Mariko Yashida to the Xavier mansion. And she's pleased to meet Xavier. And they're going out on a date. And this is 143. And in 168 is the Jerk. And then you got the Morlocks. So I think Uncanny 173, literally 30 issues from now, Wolverine's going to try to marry this broad to disastrous effects. And out of nowhere, Kurt bamfs in, and he has a mistletoe over her head. And in the tradition of a mistletoe is deadly if you eat it, but a kiss is deadlier than you mean it, which is one of my favorite quotes from Batman Forever. Or I should say one of my favorite movie quotes, which is from Batman Returns. Which I tried to get Walker to watch recently, and he was not having it. Which I was like, come on, man. Like, I think he got to the part where Selena Kyle falls, off the building, and then, like, loses her mind, rightfully. And then, he was just done. And I was like, well, you want to watch Iron Man 3? Like, let's watch a superhero Christmas movie. And I had wasted the opportunity with Batman Returns. So I want to watch that at one point soon. And so Mariko is taken by surprise, and then Wolverine is taken extremely by surprise. Retractable adamantium claws flash from the backs of Wolverine's hands, and only Nightcrawler's ability to teleport saves him from some nasty wounds. Instantly reacting with the speed that belies his massive form, Peter Rasputin shifts to the armored form of Colossus and essentially gives him like a backwards bear hug. And Xavier shoots him with, he shoots Logan with a telepathic calming sense. As abruptly as Wolverine's sudden berserker rage begins, it ends. And Logan's just trying to quell his killer instincts. And he just takes Mariko by the hand and just, embarrassed. His fragile male ego has been very shaken. And then Kitty, recognizing how tense everything is, has decided to lift her own mistletoe above Peter's head. And, of course, mistletoes, deadly if you eat them, but a kiss is deadlier if you mean it. And she says, "Merry Christmas, sexy." And then Peter just, blushes deeply. And Kurt makes a joke about it. Colossus is embarrassed about the whole thing. Storm says the car's waiting for them, and they just leave. Which seems messed up that they're going on a night out without Kitty, and she's being punished for not learning the Blackbird instructions. But it's going to be a cute reveal for why she really couldn't come. Angel is going to fly behind the car. His lady Sandy Southern and he have a long overdue date. And you probably won't see him until Easter, which reminds me about the Fun Cerebro episode I just listened to. That's 4 hours long. That's all about Sandy Southern. And they were just doing Connor, the host of Cerebro was, and Sarah was, just doing like an old school, like 50s New York accent the whole time. And I'm pretty sure my mental monologue was also done in that accent during that course of listening to that episode for like a week. And anyway, so now I have fond memories of Candy Southern. And so Kitty's back in the mansion. She's realizing, she's all alone on her mansion on Christmas Eve. So she tries to call her parents, but no one answers. And then as soon as she hangs up, the phone rings. And so she's like, Mom and Dad. But it turns out it's Scotty S. On the other end of the line, in the Florida seacoast town of Shark Bay, is Scott Summers. As Cyclops, he once led the X-Men until the death of the woman he loved, Jean Grey. After that, driven by the needs he barely understood and a grief almost too terrible to endure, he took a leave of absence from the team. In issue 138, thank you, Louise, he's been on the road ever since. And so they talk pleasantly. Then he hangs up. He thinks to himself about how lonely he had for Christmases in the orphanage. Little does he know that the caretaker for the orphanage, if that's what you call it, probably, I don't know, do you call them headmistresses and headmasters? But, the orphanage where Mr. Sinister first took notice of Scotty S., which apparently we're calling him. Then Scott, because it's 1981, is extremely sexist and asks this person, this crewmate, if he's looking for Lee Forrester, captain of the Arcadia. I was told he was hiring crew. And then all of a sudden, the man he was talking to turns out is a woman. And she says, I'm Lee Forrester. Yats to my relatives, as you heard, and you heard right. He's like, you're a girl? She's like, care to try again, sport? And it's like, come on, Scott. That's not very forward thinking. I don't know how you pronounce her name. Aleytys? I mean, there's a reason why people, I imagine it's Aletis. Well, meanwhile, back in New York, and Kitty donned her training uniform and she's starting a danger room sequence. Primary cycle, gymnasium, time cycle, 60 minutes. She concentrates, trying to be serious, but unable to repress a giggle of excitement as she phases through the floor of the control room, literally falling through the vast empty spaces between atoms, loads of her body sliding between loads of the metal, and floats down to the floor of her danger room. She hasn't been an X-Men very long. She's not used to her powers, nascent superpowers, and using them still gives her a thrill. Which is a great point to mention that, once again, 143, and she joined in 139, so it's literally 4 issues. But 2 of those issues, she was taking a long nap in her future body in Days of Future Past, so she's only really had 2 adventures, or 2 proper issues. Awaiting her is enough equipment to stock a top-rated spa. After a series of warm-up exercises, Kitty goes to work. And she's just pushing herself and practicing. And she makes a reference to being a teenage female Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then she does like a handstand on, so she starts off on the horse and now moving on to the parallel bars. And then she twerks her leg a little too much and felt a twinge in her thigh. And all of a sudden she hears a possible intruder or an intruder alarm on possibly in zone 4, which is Aurora's attic. So she runs upstairs. She thinks to herself that if there's an intruder, she's supposed to call the police. But last year, she called the police last September during a big windstorm, and the police showed up, and it was just a tree branch that had blown through the skylight. Which at first I'm pretty sure, like, when I read 143 originally, I must have read it out of order, so I didn't even connect, like, moments in time. But I distinctly remember being like, whoa, she called the police when the X-Men are at home? But, she means literally in Deerfield, Chicago. She called the police and they came out. So she felt like a jerk there, so now she's just trying to, handle things on her own. And you just tell how far away the danger room is from Aurora's attic. From like she's in the danger room. There's a great sequence where she's phasing up through the building. Then she has to phase up one more floor. And then she finally gets to Aurora's attic. She opens the door and sees all the windows are broken and her plants are dying. Which also, I don't know, there's a lot of references, or maybe well, not references, but call forwards to what Paul Smith would do in his run. Also in like 140 or 173-ish, whenever Punk Storm has come back, or not come back, but once Punk Storm is on the scene and she allows her plants to die. So that happens between now and these 30 issues. And she notices the plants are immediately dead and they're just turning to liquefied goop. And then, not who, Kitty, what? And all of a sudden she comes across the Digari, and the demon lunges, eager to claim its new succulent prey. But Kitty's too fast for it, and she phases through the floor, hoping it will shield her from her unknown pursuer. She hopes in vain. And now she's just running. And, from her point of view, she doesn't even know what this thing is. And to its credit, nowhere in the comic does it make a reference to aliens. Well, no, I'm sorry, it does. But much later in the book. But she is just constantly phasing through walls, and she runs. But wherever she goes, the demon follows hot on her heels. And you just see like this great sequence where like they start off in a bedroom, and then he crashes through, and it just works horizontally. And reading it right to left. So then there's like a room with like a mirror and a dresser, and then you can see Kitty's face through the one wall, but the Digari's about to go through the next one. And she's in near another bedroom. And then she's going to outsmart her by going up some stairs, and then she's going to phase immediately down the stairs and into a storage room. And then she's slowly inching her way to a phone to call Xavier's Rolls Royce mobile phone. And she's thinking to herself, like, well, if this was a horror movie, as soon as I reach for the phone, the monster would come out. But she's like, well, it's a monster. It's not going to have that much thought. And then, lo and behold, as soon as she picks up the phone, the demon times his attack perfectly, smashing through the door behind her before Sprite can move, much less escape. The claws rip through her. She screams, but does not die. And then she realizes that she is in extreme danger. Like, she's not just keeping ahead of it. She needs to stay completely away from it. Like, her right arm is now numb, frozen, useless. And so now, her thigh is a little sore. Now her right arm's numb. We have a double page ad for Mile High Comics. You can buy issues 6 and 7 of Uncanny for $25. Issue 129 is $5, which only came out 5 months earlier. So, like, clearly 50 cents, and now it's worth 10 times that. 100 times that? We're not going to do math on the mic. Turtle Soup taught us that. But it's just amazing. Like, even issue 141 is already at 75 cents. So it's immediately growing in value. Like, they're just printing classics. So Kitty's just making her way to the danger room, once more using her phasing ability to literally walk on individual molecules of air. Kitty ascends from the floor to the control booth. And she's worried that the room can't kill the demon because of the safety protocols, but maybe she threw enough at it. It'd be enough to like harm it or slow it or just stop it. But it's taking her much longer to program the danger room with just one good hand. And right when she's ready to press start, Kitty dives backward, phasing through the face of the booth. The demon charges after her, shattering the armored, supposedly unbreakable glass with terrifying ease, leaving the shattered savage computers short-circuiting in its wake. As Kitty lands, she feels the room come to life around her. The demon comes in for the kill, believing it has her cornered. And then in the Nagari's turn to to yell in surprise and pain as the trap so carefully laid by Kitty is sprung. And like all of a sudden, like 50 like metal rods come chasing, like burrowing at it. And although staggered by the multiple assaults, the demon is far from beaten. And so it recognizes like dangers are coming from the floor, so it rips up the flooring, which then Kitty immediately thinks like, well, now that you ripped up the room, the systems are out of control, and all the safety interlocks are canceled, and all of a sudden you see Kitty running away, and the flames are hitting the Nagari, and it's just, well, it's a flame. And so she doesn't know what it is. Like, is it dead? Is it hurt? Like, how bad is it? And she was also expecting not to be witnessing this terror. Like, she was going to set the room ablaze and then phase through it. And then as she left, the Nagari was going to be, battered by the room. But instead, she's having to phase through everything. And then she hits a force field wall, which is a random energy pattern. So she couldn't tell where it was. And she could phase through it, but she doesn't have the time. So she like does a splits and like dodges as the Nagari runs into the wall and like bounces back, and now it's ripping up the floor again. And the monster's clearly getting mad, and she is getting tired. And she just needs a couple minutes of rest, and her adrenaline's already spiked, and now it's coming down. So she's just exhausted, and you just see Nagari just drawn horribly terrifying. So she phases through a wall. She phases down immediately, and now she's in the hangar on her way to the Blackbird. And this is where she gets the reference of they use them. In the danger room, it almost caught me, but fire forced it away. It's vulnerable to intense heat. Too bad I don't have some kind king-size flamethrowers handy. They used them to fight the monster in that movie. It didn't work though. But I remember what did. Oh boy, I just hope it works for me as well. And that's the reference we get to the first Alien movie. The underground hangar complex is a mile from the mansion, connected by a high-speed subway. The monocar can make it in less than a minute. But though it doesn't seem like much, a minute can sometimes be a very long time. Kitty hasn't even gotten halfway before the demon derails her monocar. She finishes the journey on foot, 900 meters in 3 minutes, which is 1 meter is 3.3 feet. So it's like 12. Oh no, I guess it wouldn't be 1,200 meters. It'd be 9 times 3 is 227. So it'd be like 27,000 meters in 3 minutes. Yeah, this is why Eric Crosby tells us not to do math on the mic. Ignoring the white-hot poker stabbing through her chest with every gasping breath. Eric of Turtle Soup, I should say. Because you're probably listening like, who's Eric Crosby? Oh, no, you're probably listening and be like, heck yeah. Deep diving daddies. Daddies. Ignoring the white-hot poker stabbing through her chest with every gasping breath and the blinding shards of pain from her left knee that reduce her to a hobble by the time she reaches the hangar. There, in the launch bay, on the elevator that lifts it to the surface from takeoff, sits the X-Men's modified SR-71 Blackbird. Probably the most powerful aircraft on Earth, is capable of circling the globe without refueling or soaring to the edge of space, of flying at hypersonic speeds over 5 times the speed of sound. Like, we get it. We need to buy a Blackbird. Thank you. Let's go on Amazon, type in SR-71, or even better yet, drink a 1,000 Pepsis and send in for the code. And so then Kitty's just trying to her best to catch her breath, remember all the sequences, because remember the issue starts with her barely memorizing it. There's an ad here for Dazzler by Tom DeFalco, John Romita Jr., Alfredo Alcala. Dazzler #1 on sale now at comic shops and other outlets. With friends like these, she's bound to have enemies. Which I own a couple issues of the Dazzler comic. Master Switch. Oh, yeah. So she's turning on the switches, and she's like, "Think, it's coming. What do I do? Everything be all right." And then she realizes the blackbird's on a disc. And so she's turning it around. And now the blackbirds line up to the Dugari. 2 engines, each rated at 20,000 kilograms of thrust, flare to life at the touch of a button. They're at full emergency power. Afterburners punching twin pillars of flames from the Hughes exhausts. From behind the blackbird, it's likely suddenly finding itself transported to the gates of hell or plunged into the heart of a star. A howling basso roar fills the hangar, as awesome in its own way as energies fire. The engines were never meant to be fired underground, and especially not at maximum thrust. They create blast waves that shake the complex like a small earthquake. Metal stressed beyond endurance, bends, shrieks, telltales in the cockpit. Flash urgent warnings. Kitty ignores them until finally, with an almost human scream, the landing gear buckles into the blackbird, hurls itself across the launch bay into the far wall. Then, and only then, as she feels the undercarriage collapse, does Kitty shut down the engines, flooding them with foam to prevent a fire. This silence is deafening. And Kitty's just thinking, says this, I'm sorry, Blackbird. I wish I could have thought of another way. Now she's thinking to herself, I must have KO'd the air cycles. The hangar is so thick with smoke, I can hardly see. And the art's been amazing here. Like, you can just tell she's having the night. Like, she's exhausted. She has, like, sweat on her clothes, like running down her face. Her clothes are clearly dirt. Her uniform's dirty. I don't know, just all of 13, and she's just doing the very best she can to not just win, but to survive. The automatic sprinklers have malfunctioned too. I have to activate them manually. I better walk on air. Things are still burning and the floor is so hot I can feel it through the soles of my insulated boots. Where's the monster? Did I kill it? I had to do something. I had to. Nothing could have survived this Holocaust. Nothing. And then the bottom, page 27. From a flame comes the Nagari's hand coming for her face. She has time to scream. It's midnight before Professor Xavier's Rolls Royce returns to the mansion. Icy roads and airport traffic jams cause expected delays. An unexpected obstacle from a police roadblock in Salem Center. The police were alerting all the local residents, as well as checking all strangers passing through town. There has been a series of gruesome murders nearby earlier this evening, the last uncomfortable close to Xavier's school. And Xavier feels like some type of evil energies around the house that he can't quite place. Colossus goes into the door into the mansion first. Everyone feels like they're high alert. And then all of a sudden they hear a television in the living room. You see Kitty all in a cute pink bathrobe and her hair's up. She's taking a shower. She got some slippers on, some 80s red and white striped socks. She's like yawning. Oh, hi, Peter. Peter! And like runs and like jumps on him. He's blushing already. And then we see walking through the room, it's Carmen and Teresa Pride. She's like, Mom and Dad. She sees her dad. He's like, you grew a beard. Which I want to say is how I usually think of Cameron Pride, as a bearded gentleman. But I could be wrong. And so shortly, as a gift of Hanukkah surprise, Kitty got to see her parents. And then Storm whispers to her, like, Kitty, I've been upstairs to my attic. Uh-oh. What precisely happened while we were gone? I was attacked by a big, ugly monster. A monster? Oh, world, you had to see it to believe it. We fought. I got lucky. I won. But in this process, we kind of wrecked the danger room. Wrecked the danger room? And the blackbird and the hangar and a lot of the house. Oh my. Are you angry? I'm not quite sure, but from the sound of things, I'm fairly certain I should have felt terribly proud of you. It had been the closest of close calls. She was too tired and too scared to face through the demon reached for her. It could have killed her, and had it got its hands on her, but it was dying on the feet, its unearthly form crumbling to dust with every step. It tried. It made a supreme effort. It failed. Alone on Christmas Eve, Kitty Pryde underwent a rite of passage. A supreme test of her abilities, her intellect, her courage, her self. She passed. And the last image is literally the charred hand of the Digari on the ground as it just burned to ash. Next, the return of Cyclops. X-Men. And there's a note here from Chris Claremont. That now I'm thinking about what 143 is. We open with an announcement, one that in many ways I wish I didn't have to write. As many of you no doubt know, this having been widely reported in the various comics news magazines, John Byrne has resigned as penciler on the X-Men. This is his last issue. It is also Terry Austin's last issue. An inker on the book. In all my years as a writer, I have never worked with a good a creative team as nice of a pair of people as John and Terry. Together, they reach Olympian levels of artistic quality and consistency. They will be missed. That's the sad news. And for the good news, after next issue's superlative interim art job by Brent Anderson, one of the finest young pencilers working in comics today, the penciling reins will be returned to the man who co-created the new X-Men in the first place, Dave Cockrum. His initial issue is already finished, and believe me, it's a knockout. Nothing lasts forever. Any change, no matter how beneficial it may turn out to be, is wrenching. Dave's departure 3 years ago closed the first chapter in the history of the X-Men. John and Terry's departure closes the second. I wish them well, and I really look forward to what the next 3 years will bring. Your response to this book has been very phenomenal. I and Dave intend to keep it that way. Chris Claremont. And all of a sudden, that's where I realized, like, oh yeah, 143. John Byrne, Terry Austin, in on a legendary issue. Like, this is Kitty Pryde's rite of passage. The welcome to the X-Men. Hope you survived the experience. And Kitty passes. And I want to say the next issue, they're rebuilding the mansion. But it's something like all future X-Men members will have to do. I know when Rogue joins the team, the cover literally states, I hope you survive the experience. And I'm pretty sure Jubilee had one too. And maybe Pixie as well. Like, whoever the next introductory character is has a rite of passage they gotta do. People with letters was Dr. Philip S. Scott from Washington, D.C. Oh, hey, Kurt Busiek from 41. Oh, I was about to say his address, which I'm sure he doesn't live there. But Kurt Busiek, let's read his letter. To the editor, I have a complete collection of X-Men. My first issue was 37. Since then, I've been an avid fan of the book through the old and new teams, but 138 is my last issue. I quit. The change from the old X-Men to the new X-Men was fairly simple to adjust to because the book was still excellently scripted and drawn, but for the past 2 years, since 113, I've watched the book degenerate and watched the X-Men become a perversion of what they once were. Watched you twitched and mangled characters you virtually created. I first decided to stop buying during the Hellfire Club storyline, but held on for sentimental reasons and a vague hope that things would get better. During the Dark Phoenix story, I began to decide to quit, but upon hearing that the conclusion would be, decided to stick around till Cyclops left. And now I no longer justify buying the X-Men, not even to help keep my collection complete. Each issue hurts too much. I love the X-Men. If you treat them as they deserve, I would still be a faithful supporter, but until matters change, you've lost yourself a reader. Kurt Busiek, who by far is my favorite Avengers writer. Like, I can't even think of a second place person. That's how high in regard I have an opinion from. Chris Claremont responds, I'm sorry you feel that way, Kurt. Unfortunately, one person's dark age is another person's renaissance. What you saw as a perversion of the book and its characters, others saw as some of the finest issues in the series. We do our best to make our readers happy, a logical course of action, considering that if they become unhappy, they wouldn't read a book and we wouldn't be here. But the way we do it is by trusting our instincts and abilities, so long as we produce those books and comics, not something X-Men, or creative humans, not programmable robots. That's the way it has to be, the better or worse, hopefully for better, Chris. Which now I want to tweet at Kurt Busiek and be like, did you quit reading when Scott left, or did you come back shortly thereafter? And the third letter is from Mark Yanko from Calopa, Pennsylvania. Next issue, a long-awaited event, the return of Cyclops. It's a story unlike anything that yet appeared in the X-Men, wherein Scott Summers, with the help of a macabre man-thing, takes a macabre. Ugh, man. I don't know if it's my bad eyesight or the inking bleeding, but let's say it's my eyesight. Man-thing takes a nightmare journey through his past that he never likely to forget, no matter how much he might wish to or how hard he might try. His foe, despair, but spelled in a cool Marvel way. D''SPAYRE. Someone got paid extra for that, I hope. The stakes, his immortal soul. The title, Not Even Death. Chris Claremont. October, I don't know, it's 10-60, but I don't know. 80. October 80. It might be also because of the issues. It's blending a little. So I don't know why I'm going to try to do this. But the Mighty Marvel Checklist, Marvel 2-in-173, The Thing in Lost in Infinity. Oh man, I can't even read it. It's like, it starts with a B perhaps? So now I don't want to read any of the other ones. Amazing Spider-Man 214. The Frightful Four are out for the heads of Spidey and the Submariner. X-Men 143, Kitty fights alone against the demon of X-Men HQ. Oh, Demon Invader. Spectacular 52, Captain America 255, Thor 305, Micronauts 27. Hey, 27 isn't the one Kurt shows up in? Ghost Rider 54, Savage She-Hulk 14. Oh yeah, and don't worry about John Byrne. I think he goes straight to Fantastic Four with this, right? And then he goes to She-Hulk and has a legendary career, so he leaves for grander things. Incredible Hulk 257, Avengers 205, Showdown with the Yellow Claw, Defenders 93, Rom 16, The Dire Rafts of All Witchcraft, Man-Thing 9, Fantastic Four 228, The Secret of Franklin Richards, Marvel Team Up 103, Spidey and Ant-Man vs. Taskmaster, Trainer Supervillains, Conan 120, Marvel Tales 125, Iron Man 144, Star Wars 45. Hey, Dazzler number 1, Her Own Mag at Last. Run, don't walk to your local comic collector shop and get a hold of this, the Marvel event of the year. Moon Knight 6, Master of Kung Fu 98, and Marvel Spotlight number 1. And I think that might conclude the comic. And it do. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. That was Uncanny X-Men 143. So this is going to be our Christmas episode. And then on next Monday, ideally, I'm going to try to do something special for the pod. So please come back. If you will also please give a subscribe and write a review. Really appreciate that. It really helps the podcast out. You can follow the blog, shadowandflamewithmagic.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Tumblr and YouTube at Jacko SII. Love to hear from you. On YouTube, I just uploaded a video for Fortnite where I won a match as Doomslayer from the hit games, the Doom series. You can follow the blog on Twitter at SNFWM. And spelled out, as well as on Tumblr, or not Tumblr, probably you should do Tumblr, on Instagram, which I don't know, did I say Instagram? No. You can follow me on Instagram as well as Jacko SII. And thank you so much for listening, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and Kwanzaa And I'm leaving things else, and I regret trying to name holidays. But thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye.